Kind of looks like we're in a movie theater.
It's the Plaid Gang.
I'm only wearing this.
I at least wore a vest. It's award season, man. We're handing out awards, and here you are, dressed like a schlub.
No, this is dressed up for me because I'm not wearing sweatpants this time.
There you go. But you do have, like, paint or something all over your pants. I don't know what that's about.
We'll say it's paint, so it sounds like my day was productive.
But it's white if it's not paint. Oh my god!
And it's not even a porn episode this week. I'm only dressed like this because I was shooting some of the Friends episode earlier.
Guess I'm gonna have to burn my couch.
Well,
I hope we win a game soon. That way I've got the excuse.
So how easy was it for you to make this list?
So really, really difficult.
Yeah.
On an average year, I only see probably half of what you do.
But thanks to me coming up here, you see way worse.
I feel like I've got an appreciation for some pretty good trash now.
Yeah.
But last year in particular, I was refurbishing my home.
Yeah.
Sold a home.
Yeah.
Moved twice because the place we were moving to wasn't ready yet. So with all the stuff I had going on last year, I saw next to nothing.
Yeah.
What I saw would be like, and maybe that'll make this list more interesting just because you'll have the obscure shit and I'll have the obvious ones.
Right.
Like, most of what I saw was like just your Joe Schmo tentpole features, your big blockbusters, maybe a couple of things that I saw randomly, but so mine, at least for me, it's going to be a lot of, I think some people will be like, they're either obvious choices or people will be like, well, that wasn't that bad. And I'm like, well, keep in mind, I didn't see anything.
I saw so many bad ones that, because on average, I see about 4 movies theatrically a week. So in my case, it was always like going through everything I saw and seeing that one and go, okay, yeah, this one definitely putting on. And then having the maybe ones like, well, maybe, let me see what else I can find in here. And I ranked them earlier, which is hard. Like, 1 is never hard. Number 1 is like never hard on my end. It's the other ones, especially when you get near the bottom, that are the most difficult.
I always knew what I wanted at the bottom, and I always knew what I wanted on top.
Yeah.
There was a lot of the middle ones where, and then part of the problem is I only had 8 going into this, so I actually had to look up. I'm like, what else came out this year that I wanted to see that I'm just like, oh man, that looks like it's gonna suck, and didn't get around to seeing it. And so
you asked me to text you as well.
So you gave me a list of like, well, these were the lowest ones on Rotten Tomatoes, and I found 2 that I'm just like, I wanted to see that because I'm like, oh, it looks like it's gonna be shit, and I was like super curious about it, so I managed to track it down on like Netflix or on my TV here.
You were texting me about.
Found one of them. I think
too.
we've got Stars, so I think Stars had it. And then the other one of them I had to rent, which I felt dirty. I'm like, I don't give my money to this, but whatever. So it was super rough for me. So like, don't freak out with some of these picks because I'm not saying,
I won't.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to them.
Like
out in YouTube land. Yeah, like you wouldn't give a shit because there's just, I didn't see anything, so I'm like, I can only go with what I saw. So there's probably a few that I'm like, listen, I know for a fact there's been worse out this year, but I didn't see it. So
well, let's start with number 10. You go ahead. We both got them on our phones too. What's your number 10?
Well, half of the internet's gonna kill me, and half is probably gonna be like, yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
I was predicting that was gonna be your number 1.
No.
I was way wrong.
No. Yeah. I don't want to give it that honor.
I hear you there.
So there's a lot where I'm just like, I don't want to give it the honor of like being number 1. The number 1 I feel like has to be a special kind of bad.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you just amazed me. Like, you deserve it. You worked for that.
I agree.
Nobody worked for jack shit on Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. This was like one of the most half-assed, rushed tentpole films with a pedigree, a name, like Star Wars attached to it that I've ever seen. Like, this was the equivalent of me of going, like, from Superman 1 and 2 to, like, Superman 3, where you're just like, what the hell happened to this series? What happened
Yeah.
at some point? I know people are just like, well, that was with the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi were like, I'm like, no. Because even if you hate Last Jedi, and I understand some people do, it's a much prettier looking movie than this is. This is an ugly film. It's monochromatic. The plot is rushed as hell. Last Jedi would take its time when it needed to, probably too much. It just like the whole last third of it is just done in strobe lights. The special effects are inconsistent as all hell. Where like with the little alien guy, I think is the only thing that impressed me. But Baba Freak or whatever his name is, that was it. Like all those Star Destroyers now that are like mini Death Stars or whatever. Unimpressive. Like all the effects in the movie just were really, I'm like, I could see this in anything. Like any standard blockbuster. There was like Last Jedi at least had some gorgeous shots. Like the cinematography was really pretty. And I'll say that about like, this isn't just a dump on Abrams. Because I'll say that about Force Awakens. There were some gorgeous shots in Force Awakens. There was some great use of color. There was just some great filmmaking in that. Even if you're just like, oh, it's the same story. It's New Hope. Like, at least it looked pretty. This has all the problems of the other two movies of like, it's nonsensical, it deviates from Star Wars in certain ways which will piss certain people off, and it's not pretty to look at. Like, and it's more of the same. It's more of the same like Force Awakens is. It completely just takes whatever Last Jedi was trying to do and shits all over it, and then replaces it with a story that's just as bad, if not worse.
And it also is the end of the trilogy, which kind of puts a black eye on all three movies as a whole.
Exactly, and I think that's why it made because a number of people would be like, well, come on, like, that would even make a top 10 list. I'm like, that's probably why, for me, it makes the list, because, like, if this was just any other just series, I would have been like, whatever. But the fact that this is Star Wars, and the fact that they plugged this as, we're ending 40 years. The saga comes to an end. This is it, guys. And I'm like, that's it? Like, you're not just talking about a movie. We're talking about this is supposed to cap off a 40-year-long series. And I'm just like, no. You know, and then I think it made the list, too, because the fallout from it has been so ridiculous.
Oh, people blaming each other?
Yeah, the finger-pointing, Abrams pointing his finger back at... Rian Johnson going, well, there's a reason, like, I did this here and not, you know, in the third film. You can't just say Darth Vader's your father in Return of the Jedi. And then John Boyega going, you weren't going to Disney Plus me? And then Kathleen Kennedy going like, oh, this was our plan from the start. We totally were going to have Palpatine. And then the original director of the film going like, you never told me that. And then his script gets leaked and Palpatine isn't frickin' anywhere in there. There's like a hologram maybe or something. I'm just like, are you shitting? Like, so I'm like, it's clear now that this was quite literally a fucking Mickey Mouse operation run by complete incompetence. And it finally all just boiled. Like, it just boiled to a head, and I'm just like, okay, like, there were issues going into this in Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and now it just, like, exploded. Like, the volcano was building, and then in Rise of Skywalker, it's just, fucking Mount St. Helens all over the place. So, yeah, that's why it's there. It's an ugly movie. It does...
I agree.
Nothing.
It's not in my bottom 10, but I liked it as much as you did. That's not because I liked it better. At all. Yeah, exactly. Like, so it's like I disagree with none of what you're saying. But my number 10 is also the end of a saga. My number 10 is Tyler Perry's A Medea Family Funeral.
I lucked out there because I have never been into those movies. So even when you threw that on the list of like shitty movies that I could use to fill out my list, I'm like, nope.
I'll be confused.
I've watched your reviews. I'm like, that's all I needed to see in those films.
So this was, I don't know how you can like get mad that a Medea movie was falsely advertised, but somehow you can in this. Not that it would have made a huge difference either way, but when this movie came out, it was sold on it's the last Medea movie and Tyler Perry saying things like, I'm going to kill that bitch or something like that. So Dave and
Every saga has an end.
Bullshit. There is no way this is the last one. No one dies. Well, I mean... Medea's not the one who
Somebody
dies in this
should
movie.
die. It has funeral in
Someone
the title.
does, but has nothing to, it's not Medea. She walks out just fine at the end of this movie. It doesn't even come close to any kind of final thing with Medea, let alone dying or anything like that. But even on a technical aspect, somehow they get, just in terms of filmmaking and scripting, worse and worse and worse. Because it's one of those movies where it's primarily just...
How is that possible?
It is.
They look so bad from the start.
It is. Like, I don't know how to describe... You can just tell there's a lack of trying the more that it goes on. Because in this...
Well, I do know, because I've seen Tyler Perry movies I've liked.
Yeah.
So, and I do know that, like, Medea is his...
cash cow.
Literally cash cow.
Yeah.
And so he's using that just to finance things that he gives a crap about. It reminds me of, I think Christopher Plummer had this line, because, you know, he would be in almost anything.
Yeah.
You know, he was a Klingon once, he was
in Cracker Jack.
He was in Dragnet. He's like, so he'll show up in random things, and somebody asks him, like, why do you do all these, you know, kind of random movies? And he's like, film is what I do when I'm not acting. And I get the idea that Medea is what Tyler Perry does when he's not trying. And he's just like, this is just for the paycheck.
It is just like a lot of them sitting around a room and ad-libbing off of each other, and it's not cut down very well, so it just goes on forever. There's issues with sound where it feels like the mic went out, so something in the background is the thing picking up the sound. Like, it's... I barely even remember what it's about. Like, I just kind of remember, like usual, it's just a lot of improvising back and forth with Tyler Perry. And again, yeah, that new one of his, A Fall from Grace, that's on Netflix. I'm in the middle of watching it now for a snob, but you can... quality of movie aside, you can tell when it's something he's more interested in, because that Fall from Grace movie... You can tell they got a cinematographer for this one.
Yeah.
Like, it looks fine. The acting is good.
He didn't shoot it on his own camcorder?
No, or something like this,
Like your movies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And even then, it's like I try to give it decent angles.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, no, that's not fair. The Snob movie had, like, because AJ...
Oh, well, that...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were
talking about, like, Disco or something.
Disco, yeah.
That has
I don't want to sell the movies that had real people involved short.
Instead of me just holding the
Ryan's like watching going, fuck you, Rob.
I could edit Medea Family Funeral fine and trim it. Wouldn't be a good movie, but I could trim it down a little more and make it slightly better. That movie looks like Kirk Cameron Saving
words,
Christmas.
Man.
What, Medea Family Funeral? That's like saying, well,
you could do a better Medea movie.
No, I don't think I could do a better Medea movie. I at least think I could take this and edit it down a little bit.
Oh, I think if you got, like, Ryan and some of your friends involved with the equipment you had on the second Snob movie, I think you could do a better Medea movie.
It would look better. It would look better than a Medea Family Funeral.
There it is.
That felt like a waste of time.
You know what? This is your 2020s challenge. By the end of the decade, make a better Medea movie.
I could do challenge accepted. I'll make it a hard.
I'm gonna hold you to that, man. I'm gonna do it. It might be international.
Oh, so you did watch it?
I did watch it.
Yeah.
You know, at first, I'll tell you why this ended up there, because it tricked me. Because I actually was kind of liking it at first.
Were you?
Yeah, I'm just like, it wasn't great. But first off, what's her name? Tessa Thompson. I love her as Valkyrie. I loved her in all the other movies she's been in. So I'm just like, okay. And, like, she's doing fine. Like, the script isn't giving her much to chew on. But then you've got Chris Hemsworth in it. And it really hit me about midway through. I'm like, how do you fuck up putting Thor and Valkyrie in the same movie and you can't pull off even a few laughs?
Yeah.
How do you freaking do that? I mean, this should have been a shoo-in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they have good chemistry together, and it's only occasionally in this movie that any of that shows. I'm like, you had to work hard to accomplish that. My biggest problem with the film was it was so meandering.
Yeah.
It felt like a Mission Impossible movie, only with all the things that make Mission Impossible good removed. No practical effects. Most of it was really shitty CGI. Mm-hmm. The plot was way too convoluted. The plot, like, they were trying to set up this whole mole thing, and literally at about I don't know, there was some mark where a character goes like, yes, there's a mole, and I think we know who it is, and talks to this other guy, and I'm like, instantly, I'm like, I know who it is. Like, but the movie, spends forever as if this is like, who could it be? And I'm like, it's literally a freaking Scooby-Doo cartoon where it's like, it follows the same pattern. It's like, well, it's not the one they're telling you it is. It's the one who's got less screen time that seems like, oh, he's the ordinary guy. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And none of the jokes landed. That's what bothers me, because if you look at the first Men in Black, it's a weird plot.
Yeah.
And it does kind of meander, and it's the movie, strangely, whenever I watch, I'm like, I kind of forget how long this movie feels sometimes, but it works because it's really funny. The jokes land, Will Smith has charisma, and that's what kills me. You had two actors who I think have charisma. I think Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson have charisma, and yet not a single joke lands.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? And then just, like, random, like, it's another one of those movies where it wants to do, like, the girl power thing, but without going to the extra effort of, like, actually making a good movie to support that thesis. Like, it literally, it's just like, there's all these random lines inserted, and you can almost see her, like, rolling her eyes as she's saying them, and I'm like, yeah, and those were all the lines that ended up in the trailer. And yet when you watch the movie, I'm like, they're just shoehorned in.
Yeah.
Because when you get down to it for all this, like, oh, she's great, like, girl power, men, and why isn't it the women in black? And I'm like, well, it's like a gender-neutral term, like human, like, even though it has man, but whatever. So, it doesn't support, basically, its thesis, because she's terrible. And so is he.
Yeah.
They're both awful characters. The first thing she does in this movie is lies about what she knows. I'm like, there's a great message for all the little girls out there. Well, yeah, if you can't win, just lie your ass off. And, like, he's a terrible character. Like, he's just a complete wreck throughout most of the movie. And it really hit me. I'm just like, yeah, this is not what I wanted to see. What I watch a Men in Black movie for is I want to see professionals doing what they do best. And it bothers me because I'm just like, this is a constant problem I have with these movies that do this wrong, where it's like, I don't care if you want to have a woman as your lead, you know, doing things or kicking some guy's ass. Fine by me. I don't give two shits. Make a good movie around it. But the biggest thing you can do is stop preaching. You want to do a movie with a woman doing something, just have her fucking doing shit.
Yeah.
That's all you need. One of my favorite movies is Fargo. She doesn't sit there in the movie and have some long monologue about girl power. She just does shit and blows Peter Stormare's character away at the end, like, fucking gets him in the leg, you know, and hauls his ass off to jail. The end.
Wait till you see Black
Spoiler
Christmas.
for Fargo. Yeah, well, that one's not on my list because I didn't see it, but you know, one of my favorite animes that I saw in the past couple of years was something called My Little Witch Academia, and it didn't hit me till the last episode. I'm like, there's no boys in this.
Yeah.
This is all girls. The villain is female. The protagonists are female. The school is all female. There's like a couple of token boys. They don't do shit. And I didn't even realize it till the end. I told a couple of my friends, like, you realize there's no guys in this show?
Yeah.
And like, we didn't blink, we didn't bat an eye because the characters were good. We didn't give two shits. Like, that's how you do it. Just show them doing things competently. Yeah. Like, don't sit there and throw a few lines in and be like, girl power, and then like have your character be shitty at what she does. Like, it makes no sense. Or not be a good character. Like, it's just, I hate this because it's a distraction. It's just a way to try to cover up the fact that you've got a crappy movie, and it ruins it, you know, for people that want to celebrate a movie that, you know, has great female leads in it, because, you know, people can go, well, what about this bullshit? And I'm just like, make a good movie!
It's a movie that didn't try all around. It's called Men in Black International, but it could have taken place anywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
The plot was not dependent on it.
It jumped around. I think what bothered me is, like, my dad was Navy, so I remember Naples. This is like, we're going to Naples. One shot of some random island. And I'm like, man, you couldn't even get a nice, like, you know, drone shot of Naples or something. Like, it it felt just so rushed, and like the movie just ends and it just kind of stops.
Yeah.
And then there's like
sequel.
It feels like sequelitis. It's I haven't been this disappointed. Like, this reminds me of Men in Black 2, which was also one of my least favorite movies from that year, because that movie sucked. It felt like the same thing. Rushed.
Yeah.
Here's just a bunch of stuff. I'd rank this a little higher than MIB 2, because honestly I felt there were a few things that were different. MIB 2 was literally the same movie all over again, and MIB 3 I kind of liked.
I liked MIB 3.
Yeah, I thought MIB 3, I'm like, that's the sequel we should have gotten. But this just wasn't good all around.
My number 9 is a tie. It's okay. So the first one is Trading Paint, the car racing movie, NASCAR type movie with John Travolta. That's just boring. Racing's boring. Story is there's random melodrama in it. No one really has chemistry with each other because a lot of them you can tell are filmed separately and awkwardly kind of spliced in together. But I looked at that and went, okay, so if I put Trading Paint on here, which that was one where I was like, yeah, I definitely got to put Trading Paint on there. That was really hard to sit through. I was like, I've also got to put The Fanatic on here.
I saw when I was trying to go through movies that sucked, I kept looking at a lot of people's like top 50 lists of the worst films of the year. Fanatic kept showing up.
It is that bad. And I watch it, and so Trading Paint is tied with The Fanatic. Both John Travolta movies, and both make me sit there, as a diehard Travolta fan, both make me sit there going, just, can he please be in the next Tarantino movie, for the love of God? Like, at least The Fanatic. Trading Paint was harder to sit through than The Fanatic. At least The Fanatic, one... That was how I met John Travolta, because he was going to conventions promoting The Fanatic.
Nice.
And also, he really sinks his teeth into the role of The Fanatic. It's just everything else around him.
Did he tell you when you met him? And remember to see The Fanatic.
No, but that was like a lot of the things he was... They were doing a screening for it that night, which I wish to God I went to. Nothing in the plot makes sense. It's one of those... It's not one where it's like, wow, thinking about that doesn't work. Oh no, you're thinking about it as it's happening. None of the turns, the character motivations, the dialogue make any sense in this movie. It's random that this person is narrating it. Why would you open this with the character coming in going, I gotta poop?
I like it already.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It's one of the most entertaining movies I've seen of the year. Because there's ones on my list where I'm like, I'd watch that again because it's...
Yeah, there's a couple on my list that I would too.
Yeah, where it's like, it's entertaining for the reason that it's not trying to be. But it's one of those where I'm like, I can't not put it on there just on a pure script level alone. And it should have been fine, because it's a plot about a guy who's stalking his action hero idol, and you have Travolta playing very much against type, even in terms of Travolta's villains, he's one that is different from his usual kind of villains, but it's frustrating to watch someone try so hard in a script that's failing him all around.
No, I definitely had that problem with a couple films. I'll probably when we get to it. Definitely Men in Black International was one where I'm just like, I like these two actors. I don't think they're not trying.
Yeah.
I just think they don't have any direction. I hate that when I watch something and I'm just like, oh, clearly where was one of... Okay, I remember which film it was. I'll bring that up when we get to it. But yeah. I don't know. Yeah, most of the ones I've got, I think I do legitimately hate and don't want to see again.
Oh, I'd watch The Fanatic again. I'm going to do an episode on it.
Rise of Skywalker and MIB International.
Oh, I would never watch that again. Like, I was talking to Laura about this earlier. I go, Fanatic is on my list. Rise of Skywalker isn't. But I would watch The Fanatic a million times more than I would watch Rise of Skywalker again.
Well, it's the so bad, at least it's kind of entertaining.
That's what it is.
The Room effect.
Yeah, Saving Christmas and all of that.
Bet you can't wait to talk about this. Dumbo.
I was like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? In my head, I'm like, is it going to be cats?
I did not I know it's your least favorite Disney remake.
He probably
It
is,
was
yeah.
not even my least favorite Disney remake of the year. Spoiler alert, there's going to be another one on this list. But yeah, it wasn't good. There was a couple of interesting things. I thought the production design was kind of interesting. I like the weird turn of the century, like, not quite Art Deco, but maybe pre-Art Deco kind of park that Michael Keaton was running. I do like seeing Michael Keaton in things, but I don't know what he's doing. It's almost like he's trying to do Christopher Walken's Max Shreck.
Totally.
But it's not coming off quite right. It's interesting to watch, but I liked... Oh, what was her name? Was it Cosette? The trapeze...
lady.
lady.
Was it from Casino Royale?
Yeah. I was trying to think of the character's name. I can't remember the actress. I enjoyed her, and then they gave him nothing to do, but I like Danny DeVito as kind of the ringmaster. They're definitely opposite of the Disney movie where the ringmaster is kind of scary, like, get down! Like, whipping the elephant around. I remember he comes in at one point, he's like, what's going on? But it... Yeah, that's it. I'll give it this. Dumbo, the effects on Dumbo were not as freakish as I thought they were.
They were fine.
When I saw the trailer, I was like, ugh. And then when I saw the movie, I'm just like, all right, this isn't as bad. But talk about a plot that goes nowhere, and the child acting was just awful.
Man.
So the boy is he's just there.
Yeah.
He left no impact, which, if you can't be good, at least leave no impact.
Yeah.
The girl, my God.
They are our leads.
They are the leads, because it's a child actor-driven movie for some reason, even though the original had no human actors leading it. So she's like a Vulcan. Yeah. She's like Savick or Tuvok or I forget what the Vulcan's name was in Star Trek Enterprise. She probably reminds me of that one the most. But I'm just like, everything she delivers is really flat and kind of scientific. And it's just another one where it's just like, I want to be a scientist when I grow up. Insert message here. Like,
you can tell when it's not genuine, and this is one of those cases because it's the writer of Transformers 2.
Oh, well, that masterpiece.
Yeah.
And her whole thing about, again, little girl wants to be a scientist. That's great. Why don't you make a movie about a little girl who wants to be a scientist? Do it in a realistic setting. Like, why don't you make a movie about a woman who was a goddamn scientist in real life? Like, why do we have to, like, it bothers me when we insert these messages into movies and they don't do anything with it. Like that, it did nothing for the movie. Like, it literally is like, well, we're just inserting this here for reasons. Does this have anything to do with Dumbo? No. Does it tie together with most of the themes of the rest of the story, even within the context of its own movie? I don't remember.
No, just I like science.
It left no impact. The movie itself, like, for as much as the production design I did like, I thought it was a very drab-looking color palette. Like, there were some scenes I liked, but overall I'm like, yeah, it's kind of just a gray-looking movie. It reminded me of, like, Rise of Skywalker that way. And just... Dumbo, I think, is one of those films that doesn't get enough respect.
It's my favorite of the Disney cartoons.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it would probably be in my top 5 because it came out at a time, there were budget cuts and everything. I think the war was going on.
Yeah.
Dumbo was a movie that, it was one of the few that really thought outside the box. It's a great anti-bullying story. The kid loses its parents. There's animal abuse in it. It's told directly from the animal's point of view. There's no human characters in it. The main character doesn't talk. When you really think about what Dumbo did way back then, after you already had... I mean, Fantasia was the only other odd one out, but when you have Snow White, Pinocchio, these things, and then all of a sudden you have Dumbo, and it's like, what the hell is this? The crows get shit on all the time because people like to say they're problematic. But you look at what was going on racially in other films at the time, oh my God. Like, at least the crows are heroes, which is a step above other portrayals I've seen of films that came out literally within that same decade, where you're just like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, as you know, jazz handy and minstrel show as the Crows are, they're at least heroes. They help the protagonist out. They're living, you know, they were ostracized themselves, which I thought was a great message. Find a way to kind of eke out their own existence, you know, and help the poor kid out. Like, honestly, I think it's a way better representation than a lot of other things that were coming out at the same time. You know, feel free to look any of them up. I still think Dumbo actually comes out ahead, including in Disney, because they had freaking Song of the South.
I've got a DVD of cartoons downstairs. It's got a bunch on there.
So I don't know. I think people like to hate on Dumbo for that, and we can sit here and go like, yes, it's inappropriate, it's ignorant, it's a ridiculous stereotype, while also going like, you know what, considering the time it came out, it's actually a step ahead of some of the other things that were going on in some of these other movies. I mean, Jesus, watch Holiday Inn, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah.
Bing Crosby in blackface singing in front of a legit black choir. Well, I'm just like sitting there going, like, man, what must it have been like to just sit there having to sing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah, Bing sitting there? I'm just like, wow.
And it's also random, because I think...
Talking about thank God for... And having to sing about thank God for Abe Lincoln. Thank God the white guy saved us. In that. Well, meanwhile in Dumbo, you have the quote-unquote black characters saving the poor schmuck there. Like, there's an actual difference. And, like, you know, again, you can sit there and be like, yeah, it sucks, because it's a racist portrayal, while also going like, you know what? It still was a step above the other shit.
And addressing what the intent was.
Yeah, the intent, I don't think, was as malicious as certain other films at the time, including some silent era films.
Yeah. And it was... And things from the original that would happen, like the Crows, I think it shows like a feather in one scene. Like, and other than that, things that would happen in the remake that happened in the original were just randomly integrated into the movie. Like the baby mine sequence.
Oh, the baby mine sequence, which
the pink elephants.
The pink elephants rolled my eyes the most. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah, and it's like, why isn't this your main show? You've created sentient bubbles.
Why isn't that your show? Man, if I were in the 19-teens or 20s or whatever, I would have been going like, holy shit, the opium's kicking in.
Yeah.
So, not a fan.
My number 8 is this was a one-day showing. It was a thing called Bright Ones. That was it felt like a it was like if I saw that movie Sunday School Musical in the theater. It was me and Gino at this movie that's intended for this. It's this musical Christian drama that's intended for tweens, and me and Gino were sitting there at it. It's always hilarious when you're at a movie like this where they start or they intro it and they're starting to talk to the audience to say, like, here's how you do these dance moves that we're doing, but no one in the audience is doing it. Like, everyone's just sitting there like, yeah, like, just get on with the movie. No one's gonna get up and start dancing in this film. It's just about, plot-wise, it's just this, like, singing competition at this school, and it's told in, like, chapters. Like it's trying to, like a Tarantino movie, except a like a chapter would end, and Gino and I would be like, "Wait, we're at chapter 2 already? What even happened in the first chapter? They just arrived at school."
Chapter 4, A New Hope.
All I need to know about this movie was like the main kid is one who he lives in a foster home, and he really wants to get adopted, and he's bummed out because he is always meeting with these parents and they never want to adopt him. One, because he's a wet blanket. He shows up to everything. And two, it's not like this foster home is like one that you see in like, I don't know, a horror movie or a hard drama or something. No, it's like he's like living in a mansion. And, like, his foster parents are, like, the best parents in the world. And at the end, I think they actually adopt him. And they give him a dog, too. I might be fudging some of the details here.
Okay.
Because this came out, like, the same weekend as Endgame. So,
and then he snaps his fingers and half of the population's wiped out.
That would be more realistic, because where Gino and I lost it in this movie was when it's this big dance at the end after this show that they've done. And again, the parents give the kids this dog, the real dog. And then at one point in this dance, they go, hey, where's the dog at? And it pans over to the DJ booth with the dog with headphones on, fake paw, just wicka, 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 wicka. They all nothing like this happened in the movie before.
Wow.
This was when Chino and I lost it. And when I was looking at the movies I saw this on there, I listed, I'm like, yeah, that image of that DJ dog is coming back in my head. And the unenthusiasm from the audience, like, yeah, this might be near the bottom, but I'm putting this one on my list. Bright ones.
Wow.
I was so glad I was there.
Okay.
I gotta do an episode on it because I know that it's been since May, I guess, that I saw it. So I'm like, I know there's probably stuff I'm forgetting about this movie, but I'm always gonna remember that DJing dog.
I feel like that's something we just did Beverly Hills Chihuahua. I feel like that would have showed up in that.
At least so that you expect that.
I would
probably.
expect that there.
Yeah. Number 7.
Wonder Park.
Yeah. I'd expect a DJ dog in that movie.
I don't know how to describe this movie.
You'll have to remind me because it's been forever. It feels like forever that I watched
so
it.
It opens with... The British have a term for this that I like using because it sums up that feeling. They have a word called twee. And it means that cutesy, wootsy sort of like thing that's like it's intended for like toddlers.
Yeah.
And like it opens with this girl who... I don't want to judge a kid and whatever they're into, but I felt like looking at the way they drew this girl, I'm like, she seems a little too old for this story time with mommy building like, you know, this little like, I mean, at least by that point with me, and I knew girls who were actually into Legos. They were like building shit with like Legos and stuff, and instead it's just like, you know, a lot of stuffed animal-y kind of stuff, but it's like, we're gonna build Wonder Park, and it starts off showing this like amusement park like type situation with stuffed animals, and I just almost instantly when the animals started talking and then the warthog had the voice of Mila Kunis, I just sat there and I'm like, oh, I made a mistake. I'm like, I can't like, because this was one of the ones that I looked up because I had heard a lot bad about it. I'm like, shit, now I'm committed. I'm like, oh, this is a mistake.
You were texting me about this, and I was going, that's right. I also forgot how it has a decent budget, because being so many months removed from it, I picture the quality of Arctic dogs in my head.
That was the weird thing, is it actually looked pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Not Pixar or DreamWorks quality, but hovering, like I'd say that Illumination kind of quality, where I'm like, there's money behind this, and it cuts to this girl who's like playing with her mom, oh, Wonder Park, and then so randomly she decides to build this giant roller coaster in her backyard, basically, destroys half the neighborhood doing it, and this is at the point where I'm like, okay, I guess it's that kind of movie where this is a kid's fantasy completely removed from any real world. That her fantasy alone is kind of crazy, but I'm like, well, that's a fantasy. But I'm like, okay, even the real world is nuts because you can't do this. So they tend to be the worst parents ever because, you know, the cop's like, I suggest military school. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't go that far. But I'm like, yeah, this girl needs to be punished. Like, this is insane what she did. And they're like, you're grounded. And then like 10 seconds later, it's like, let's play Wonder Park stuff again. I'm like, oh my God. Like, what happened to being upset?
Don't you mean Wonderland, as the movie calls it?
Yeah, so that was the other thing. She calls, yeah, that's right. She calls it Wonderland. The park's name is Wonderland, but the movie's name is Wonder Park. So, like, what the did they change this at some point and nobody told marketing?
Only the director knew, but he got fired.
So then, randomly, and this happened in another movie we saw, Mommy gets a call and goes, oh no.
Yeah.
And then she starts getting sick, and I'm like, are they fucking killing her off with cancer right before our eyes? I'm like, ballsy movie. So she has to go. She suffers from mystery Totoro disease, which is what happens in My Neighbor Totoro, where mom gets sent off for a mystery disease and at the end just comes back fine. She gets sent off and then the girl becomes despondent because her mom is dying. Mm-hmm. And so the rest of the movie, she goes to math camp, which this is something that missed me. I never got math camp. I'm just like, math camp that's two things in the world I hate most of all. Math and camp.
Yeah.
Like, camp to me, I was like the Addams Family kids.
Same.
I like, you send me the camp, I would just be like, what if I want to read? And then Peter McNichols comes in, not on my time, Four Eyes. You know,
Same.
and then I'm sitting there, I'm like, how can I burn this place to the ground? Like Wednesday Addams. So she goes to math camp, but along the way, she stops and finds this ticket that leads into the woods, which takes her to Wonderland. And I'm like, why couldn't you have done that at home? Why did we need to go to math camp? And why is it in the middle of the woods?
Yeah.
Randomly. So there, basically, the short story is she finds all the stuffed animals, and they're being destroyed by what I can only call the cutesy nothing. It's like the nothing from the Neverending Story, only it's made up of a bunch of plushies. And so she has to solve everything, and then the animals find out that she created the land, and that because she was sad, the land's falling apart, and then they get all pissy at her. Why'd you forget about us? And I'm like sitting around, I don't know, because my mom's dying? Like, I get...
That's true, because I think it's trying to have a decent message.
I think the message is that even in the worst situations, don't lose hope and don't lose imagination. Like, you know, there is a gift, but the way it presents it has a very much just like keep smiling quality towards it. Like, if you just keep smiling, you don't have to remember that your mom's dying, and then your little animal friends can stay alive. It's done really haphazardly. I found it was written by the guy who did what's it called? Galaxy Quest. I'm like,
really?
No, yeah, and I'm like, it honestly makes sense because Galaxy Quest is a movie to me that I like. But I do not get the cult following some people have because, like, it's one of the rare movies of me where I'm like, this needs to be more cynical. And it isn't. It's, like, so just, like, cute and tries to be cute to the end. I'm like, I wish this was an R-rated movie. I think it would be funnier. I still like Galaxy Quest. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Yeah, I love Alan Rickman. But it is one of those where I'm like, I think it's a good movie. I think it's a very good movie. It doesn't cross into greatness for me for that reason, but Anyway, so it has that same problem of I'm like, this is just too cute, and the message is too, like, you gotta deep dive into it somehow, and instead it's so superficial that it comes off as like, this is the same problem people had with Inside Out, but I'm like, listen, Inside Out was like much smaller stakes, so it's like, oh, it's the emotions treated as a big deal, but like, it's a little girl who gets kind of depressed. I'm like, her parents weren't dying in Inside Out. So she solves the problem, and then her monkey friend gets whispers the whole time, and it's really from her imagination. So I'm like, oh, so the monkey's a fraud. I'm like, that was the weird thing about it. I'm like, really? The monkey's just a giant fraud. The other weird thing about it is, it's another film that John Oliver is in that I wish somebody would just punch him in the face. I love John Oliver. I like John Oliver's show. I hate him in any voiceover work he does. He just like somehow just gets on my nerves. So he's in this delivering lines that are all really, really awful. And yeah, she goes back and then everything's fine. And I think the biggest tell for me was like 15 minutes into it, I'm like, God, I feel like I'm in a really shitty Nickelodeon movie.
Man.
And I looked it up and I'm like, oh my God, it is a Nickelodeon movie. No wonder. I guess there were production issues, but the other big thing, since we were talking about actors who try things, who are trying their best and it doesn't work out, I thought the girl, I thought whoever played the girl in the movie, I thought initially it was an adult doing like a little kid's voice because I thought the acting was really, really good. And I'm like, I'm so used to like, I see plenty of child actors in voiceover work, and like, there are some that are really phenomenal, and there are some that are just middle of the road. I'm like, yeah, they're all right. Like, you can tell this is just, they're reading their lines. And like, I thought this kid was really, really good. And then when I looked it up, she was an 11-year-old kid at the time. And I'm like, I feel so bad for this kid that she had this like role and it was wasted on garbage because I'm like, she's really good. She should have been the goddamn Disney movie or DreamWorks film or something that, you know, would have been big, and instead she ends up in Wonder Park. So there's an example of like that happening. But yeah, no, a terrible movie.
I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu. So they made a sequel to I Spit on Your Grave.
That was one that I thought, I didn't see it. I remember hearing about it and I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to see it because I knew it was going to be garbage. But when I saw the list of worst movies of the year and that one kept showing up, I'm like, I bet you Brad's going to have that on there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. It was one where I was looking through all the movies I saw. I was like, oh, right, I did see that. Because there's that remake of I Spit on Your Grave, and then that has sequels to it. So when I saw there's this thing coming out called I Spit on Your Grave, Deja Vu, I just assumed it maybe had something to do with those, or was just kind of an in-name only sequel. No, it's Miyazaki, who wrote and directed the original movie, wrote and directed this. It's his first movie in like 30-some years, maybe, I think. And it's Camille Keaton is back in it from the first movie, and it is a direct sequel to the first film, and it's decades later. Camille Keaton has a daughter, and the wife and kids of the main rapist from the first one want revenge on Camille Keaton, and then her daughter, Camille Keaton's daughter, squares off against the villains from the originals, widow, the kids, and then the town as a whole is like made up of this kind of cult, I think. It's bizarre. Here's the thing. It's like
Michael Myers. Now we're getting to the cult of Michael Myers.
Yeah, there's something weird.
You always need a cult.
Yeah, there's something weird with the town in the movie.
You know what? I just as a side note, that's another one of those tropes. Like, Ebert had this weird thing about how you can never have a good movie with a hot air balloon in it. Somehow he missed Wizard of Oz, I guess.
Or Great Race.
Or Great Race, yeah. But there is one that I want to come up with, which is, it's becoming increasingly harder for me to have great movies with a cult in it. Because I think of the later Halloween sequels, which I don't like. The cult, and then this is the cult, and then even Rise of Skywalker, the cult of the Sith. And I'm just like, it's a lazy way just to be like, well, who's responsible for all this? The cult.
Yeah, it was like the whole town was also
Hot Fuzz. That had a good cult.
Yeah,
those were the few.
was wanting them dead, and here's where normally I'd be like, well, you know, it's nice seeing Camille Keaton back again, and hey, Miyazarchi's directing. This movie was 2.5 hours long, and if you cut an hour of this movie, which you can, because it's one of those movies that has endless monologues, every other scene in the movie you could see where you could easily cut it down. So if you would cut an hour of this movie, it wouldn't be that great, but it'd be some like, okay, I watched this 90-minute, decades later sequel to I Spit on Your Grave. Instead, what you're left with is this 2.5-hour slog that is that long for no reason. It feels like you're watching an assembly cut of the film, and not something that, oh, this is our final product. Whoa! Like, because it's that long, and that dumb, and so monotonous to sit through. Just these endless speeches. It was rough. It was a rough sit, and made frustrating because it's like, it's the editing that killed this movie. Wouldn't have been great either way, but it's that made it made it be like, okay, yeah, that one I'm definitely putting on there.
Now we get to it. Arctic Dogs.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I'm not really going to ramble on about this movie. It's in the middle of my list, and that is right where it belongs. Yeah. I'm like, this was so bland that it's just like, I can't even remember it that well.
Neither can I.
I remember, was it John Cleese as a walrus?
Yes.
That was the thing that happened. Is it Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, he's the lead.
I completely fucking forgot. I almost was going to say Rob Schneider, because I was thinking of Norm of the North, because that's what the movie kind of reminded me of, because it's in the Arctic. just a whole bunch of nothing, that movie was. And I don't know, like, I don't want to get it at the top of the list because I'm like, that is way more than it deserves. But
I totally agree.
It's just so bland.
I
can't even hate it. That's why it's in the middle. I mean, it's certainly not, but it's certainly bad enough to not be near the bottom of the list where I'm like, well, I've seen worse, because I'm just like, no. I remember really going like, oh, this movie, will it just stop? It's just boring the living fuck out of me.
But it's trying to have an environmental message.
That's right. That's right. It's all about saving the environment. I'm like, cool. So we get a Captain Planet episode in the middle of this. And I would, you know what? As a show, I would much rather watch all of the seasons of Captain Planet than
hell
sit
yeah.
through Arctic Dog one more time, because that show at least was like so bad it's kind of funny. And plus some great voice acting. You got Tim Curry in that show, Jeff Goldblum. You know, there's nothing like hearing Jeff Goldblum talk about how he wants to pollute.
Yeah. I feel like this movie is one where... Because we went to go see a lot of bad kids movies, and there's a lot that we left going...
There's a lot of bad kids movies on my list because of you.
Totally. Like,
there probably would be hardly any if it weren't for you.
I feel like...
You did this to me!
You make sure that comes to the Regal. I feel like there's some that we left going, oh, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Arctic Dogs is one where when it ended, I was like, I feel like that's as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, I don't know if I was surprised by anything in it.
What's the line? I'll tell you what Arctic Dogs was. What's the line from Princess Bride about, how does it feel to have years of your life sucked away? Like, it was something like that, where I'm like, I felt like I was in that torture device just having my energy drained.
Yeah.
It's just, ugh. Yeah.
Well, here's my next one is one that Doug and I went to go see. The Reliant. The Kevin Sorbo one.
Oh, God.
So this was a Fathom event. Doug and I were stuck in the...
When did Kevin Sorbo become not cool?
He's still the best part of all of these movies.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's the best part of the movies, but I'm like... I remember the Kevin Sorbo days, and I'm like, at some point, it's like, what, did you just find Jesus and suck the fun out of him?
He took Disappointed and ran with it. So Doug and I were stuck in the front row for this movie because, I got our tickets and it said everything was picked except for the stuff in the front row. So I'm like, oh, I guess we're stuck in the front row. And then we get there, there's hardly anyone there. And by the end of it, we could have sat anywhere. So Scott Foy went to go see this movie as well and told me the same thing. He goes... Yeah, when I clicked on my thing, it said the same thing, that most seats were taken, but then when you get there, it was hardly anything. And we were like, what kind of scam went on with this movie?
It's a conspiracy!
Yeah. So the movie advertises something way different. Not that what it advertised is like... Not that the trailers were like, man, that's going to be great, but at least was like, oh, that might be like entertainingly bad. So the movie... shows that it's like this Red Dawn situation where the government and society all collapse because of Antifa.
Of course.
Because of Antifa taking everyone's guns, and the only person who can save us is Kevin Sorbo and his family. That's not what this movie is. When you go see the movie...
probably would have rather at least seen that film for the shits and giggles.
Yeah, same. What it actually is...
Antifa.
Kevin Sorbo dies 15 minutes into this movie. And I
so the executive decision
did. They did. I leaned over... At least with that, though...
He made it halfway through that movie.
If you looked at the poster for Executive Decision, it did say, like, and Steven Seagal after a bunch of names.
Spoiler alert!
No, it's like, he's on the poster. His name is first on there. Like, he's in all the trailers. So is Eric Roberts, but then you go see the movie and Eric Roberts is in one scene and has like one line.
No one gives a shit about Eric Roberts.
I do, damn it. I mean, it's a step above Karate Christmas Miracle where Eric Roberts was just from stock footage. This, I'm like, well, I think he's actually there. So this Antifa type thing, I think, like, causes the government to collapse, and Kevin Sorbo dies 15 minutes in. The rest of his movie is just his annoying kids living in the woods and arguing with each other. I'll give you an example. I can't remember if this argument happened exactly in the movie, but this gives you an idea of the type. Imagine it's 30 days after this Red Dawn type event, and a character is catching food.
Antifa.
Yeah, and if
Should have called it Antifa Dawn.
I wish. Well, then it definitely would have been false advertising. But imagine
Antifocalypse.
Amerigeddon was already taken. Imagine if like they're catching like food for someone, and then you have a girl go like, "Oh, but I'm a vegetarian." I can't remember if that happened exactly, but that type of thing did. So
In reality, those, and it was a post-apocalyptic situation, those people would have just been left behind really quickly.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would have been like, too bad.
she has to go into town at one point, and they're like, "Okay, we'll take a gun with you." And she's like, "I don't like guns." We're sitting there going, it's the apocalypse. Take a damn gun.
So basically, this movie is comprised of insane alt-right stereotype heroes and insane alt-right type, liberals. So basically, it's comprised of all the side characters from Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah.
All of the... God, I hated those characters so much.
That's pretty much, yeah. It's a lot of them just bickering back and forth in the woods. That's totally what it is. It was... I wish it was one of those movies that was funnier than it is. It's really kind of a slog.
That's a shame. So you can't even hate watch it.
Not really. Like, it's easy to talk about. Like, we certainly had enough to talk about when we did the review of it, especially Sorbo died. The reason, I just remembered this, the reason why Sorbo dies in the movie is because his anti-gun daughter hides the guns to teach him a lesson, so when he goes to get the guns to, like, protect his family, they're not there and he gets killed.
Written by Sean Hannity.
I leaned over to... No, he was in the last Kevin Sorbo movie.
Wouldn't surprise me.
He was in Let There Be Light. I leaned over to Doug when Sorbo died, and I went, "Oh."
People watch these things. That's what fascinates me.
Well, they...
Well, apparently not that many since you were...
Yeah. I leaned over to Doug, and I go like, "Oh, watch, he's dead." And then it hit us 5 minutes later. Oh, crap. He's dead. We are stuck with these damn kids for, like, the next hour and a half or something. It was...
So this was the right-wing equivalent of Black Christmas, then? Is that what you're saying? Is one crazy one side, one the other?
Yeah. No, dude, totally. Because Black Christmas was a left Pure Flix movie. This, I would say...
I don't know, do we need... God, it's like I already hate the Pure Flix movies, but they are kind of hilarious. Like, do we need leftist Pure Flix movies now?
We got Black Christmas.
Is this the next step?
Yeah.
Is this how we all evolve?
Like, I had to think there for a second. I was like, how much worse is this movie than Black Christmas?
It's like the Force. You need the light side, the dark side. It's like for every one side, now we have to have the other.
This one I put is worse than I'd say is worse than Black Christmas, only because Black Christmas technically gave you what it advertised. It spoiled the whole movie in the trailer. And I go,
you were lied to, at least.
Yeah.
You knew going in.
Black Christmas was maybe better made than this, and Black Christmas isn't even that well made. It's just probably better made than the Reliant was. And
what was this movie rated?
Probably, yeah. If it were, maybe it's unrated, but if it were to be rated, it'd be a PG-13. The Reliant. Oh, yeah.
You do a post-apocalyptic thing that's PG-13.
When you hide all the guns.
I guess, yeah. Surprised this wasn't higher. Playmobil.
I was wondering what you liked worse, Playmobil or Wonder Park, because they're kind of the same movie.
Playmobil was crazier.
I was glad that one didn't give us what it advertised.
Yeah, that Playmobil was so... And they do similar things, only they actually kill... That's why Playmobil's hired. Had the balls to kill off the parents. Like, randomly. And, like, Playmobil... You know what? Playmobil is the Lego version of Cats, the movie.
Yeah.
Where it is so insane. You're kind of transfixed by it. And they both have singing.
Yeah.
But I was watching that movie, and I'm just like, my jaw was just hitting the ground so many times. Like, I can't believe what I'm watching. Just
Same.
randomly, just your parents are dead. It was like that scene in Bridge to Terabithia, which I had read the books, I knew was coming, but the almost heartless, cruel way, just all of a sudden, like Robert Patrick's like, your friend is dead. Like, only you do that in the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's just like, holy crap, and then just. And then this kid is just like, you've changed. When mom and dad died, a part of you died too. And I'm like, what kid talks like this? And you said he was better. He was in what, the Child's Play movie?
Oh yeah, he was good.
I didn't get a chance to see that, but you said he was better in that. He's terrible in this, so I'm like, well, it must be the director because the kid then can act.
And this was also made like 3 years ago. Like,
yeah, I mean, maybe he grew into acting better, but this is always why I you know, and I'll say that because I don't think I mentioned it in Dumbo, but I'll always say this. You can have legitimately bad child actors. That there's no director or casting agent that's going to save you, but it is up to casting and it is up to the director to make that call. To be like, kid, you don't got it. Boot. I'm not going to sit here and like Jake Lloyd ruined The Phantom Menace. No, George Lucas and whatever the casting director was in that film, maybe together, or maybe he or she was overruled, and George Lucas said, "Oh, I want this kid." They are to blame for that.
Yeah.
The frickin' 7-year-old, he's a 7-year-old kid. And, you know, the same thing with the kids in Dumbo or the kids, you know, at some point, somebody had to say no. Now, you said Dumbo was a result of nepotism, because she was the daughter of some celebrity.
Tandy Newton, I think.
So that may be why. You know, this kid, you know, could act in other things, so maybe it's the director. But this is why I'm not hard on child actors. I'm like, well, I'm going to blame, you know, I can say that their acting's terrible, but whether that's the fault of the actor, the child, his or herself, is, you know, generally I think probably not. I think it's an issue with the director or casting. So the kid's not very good. There's a weird thing that happens in the movie, which is the older sister occupies like a Duplo character that almost looks like kind of a mother character, and when they switch back, I forgot that wasn't his mother.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like this, the movie just wanders about. It's just this really poor man's version of a Lego movie, and like, I guess Playmobil or Playmobil, or I don't know how it's
pronounced Playmobil.
Playmobil. So okay, for all you people, because I remember reading this in the comments, you were complaining that they're pronouncing it wrong. In American English, I'm not going to sit here and say that's the correct English. I'm just going to say in American English, we put an E at the end of, mobile. You know, we don't always pronounce it like that, but when I see the MOBIL, I think American English would be, well, mobile. There's no E on the end, like, you know. I guess, was it German? See, I took German, so if I knew that it was German, I would have been like, okay, mobile. But I don't know. But so I guess it just depends where you are. But it's not a huge, like, Playmobil, at least, I don't remember being a huge thing here. So maybe this was trying to play to a European audience. But we had like Duplo. And I kind of remember Playmobil as a kid, but like generally, you were going. Most kids, at least my age, like we were 80s kids. Yeah. From what I remember, at least this was my experience and the experience of the kids around me. Maybe somebody had a different experience. We went straight from Duplo to Lego. So Playmobil just wasn't a thing for me. So I'm like, who is this for?
I remember, but
Playmobil here?
On my end, I remember more so like they were there at my grandma's and they were fine. I just never knew what their name was, or what they were called or anything. They were nice little sets and everything.
But you've got a finite age for them. I felt like once you were old enough to start screwing around with Legos, Playmobil was more like the little kid's toy.
I can see that.
Maybe not Duplo level, but that in-between stage. So I'm like, is this meant for that audience? Because it really isn't. Like, this almost feels like this... At some points, it feels like it's aimed at the Lego movie crowd, which would be any age up through, you know, maybe early teens, you know, and then, like, maybe adults who enjoy it because it was a funny movie.
It feels like a mockbuster of the Lego movie that happened to be put in theaters.
It felt like more like half the time it felt like it was literally intended for 5-year-olds, and then all of a sudden they would get into the Lego movie crowd, and I'm like,
yeah,
this movie's all over the place. But it was so crazy. I kind of ranked it higher.
I was glad it was so crazy because I went into this movie based on the trailer that just made it look like a lame spy parody, and there is so much crazy.
That was the other thing. It looked like it was some spy movie, and then that's like 5 minutes of
plot. I was so glad, like, because I'm like, we left, I'm like, we surprisingly got a lot to talk about with this film. So I was hooked on this
film. Is definitely one that I would watch again. But I would have to, I would have to bring somebody with. I would be like, have you seen this? Oh, you got to see this. If you like weird, bad movies, like, you're going to be like, who the hell is this for? Like, so, like, this is one I would love to show Doug, and like, no, Doug, you got to see this. What the hell?
I couldn't.
Maybe we'll do a critic review of it someday. But
dude, yeah. There's a lot to work with, like, especially because you could compare it to like the Lego movie and like Last Action Hero and things.
Yeah,
like
it
that.
does.
Like,
it does that. It felt like Last Action Hero, which may have been another problem for me. I'm not a big Last Action Hero fan.
I'm a huge Last Action Hero.
A lot of people hate me for that because I said that back in the day when we did a review of that, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm just not a huge...
I love it, but I know plenty of people who don't like it.
There's good moments in it.
Yeah.
And I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. I thought the kid actor was pretty good.
Yeah, he was good.
I thought the movie was much like the Playmobil movie. I was very confused. I'm like, I think this knows who it's for, what it's spoofing, or it's just kind of, let's just throw whatever we can at the screen and just see what happens. And, I don't know, maybe in the same way I kind of like this movie, some people like Last Action Hero, and I do like parts of Last Action Hero, so it's definitely weird. It's so freaking
Well, between this and New Mutants, it's like a 1-2 punch of Anya Taylor-Joy movies that were made like 3 years ago. Number 5 on my end, I've got The Haunting of Sharon Tate.
I didn't know if you had seen that, but
I saw it.
That one's in a lot of people's top 5s, and I read the plot, and I'm like, holy fuck!
It's the anti-Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, I was telling Laura...
That's what people were saying, that it's almost like a pre-mockbuster of it.
Kinda, yeah. Like, this is the one where it's Hilary Duff playing Sharon Tate, and takes place in the days before the attack from the Manson family, where she's having, like, premonitions of her death and seeing ghosts, and there's hauntings in the house.
Classy!
So, you could show this in, like... I was talking to Laura about this when we reviewed the OJ movie. That's the same director. He did a movie last week that came out last week called The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. Just as classy. You could show this in like a film class along with like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to be like, this is how you do something like this, and here's how you don't.
The funny thing is, I don't have much in the way of shame. So
same.
Poor taste. Like I tend to like a number of things in bad taste.
I've made exploitation movies. Reading
the description of this movie, I'm like, wow, this is crossing a line for me. Where I'm like, because I'm just like, why? What is the point? I'm like, what is even the point of like it? Just like reading it, I was getting kind of pissed off, and I'm like, that's very hard to pull with me. Where I'm just like, I'm offended, and I'm just like. Yeah, this just seems like being douchey for the sake of being douchey.
I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt going into it, because I was like, you could take about anything and do an alternate history movie. Like, look at what Tarantino does with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, an alternate history film revolving around the same incident. But whereas in the Tarantino movie, one, you have his dialogue, his characters, his direction, and also that's a movie that is made from love of movies, from love of Sharon Tate, and wants to do something kind of bittersweet towards this situation. This movie, no. This is a movie that, regardless of what the intent really was going into it, it's one of those films that just feels like a pretty quick exploitation flick. And you ever see those movies that are about like a tragic event and the dialogue is all clearly written by someone who knows what that event is. So they're all saying this very philosophical dialogue to each other that's like, just remember, you were put on this earth to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
like,
obvious writing is obvious.
Yes,
that kind
thank
of
you.
thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing, where it's like, you know, Sharon, you always thought this, and like, one of those where it's like, this is written by somebody who is giving his characters dialogue that they would only be speaking if they knew the ending of this movie, or what fate is.
Lame!
Yeah, and like, I think they kind of try blaming Roman Polanski at one point in the film, like, because he doesn't show up, he's away, and he's not in the movie. Like, there's no, because I mean,
what was he whispering in Charles Manson's ear? What?
No, it's like because she's waiting for him to show up because he, like, in real life was off on making a movie or something, or like not even in the country, and so there's a part where
he'd get used to that eventually, not being in the country.
Like,
what did I say about that taste?
I'm surprised they didn't say that in this movie. There's a part where she's laying in bed and she just goes, "Damn you, Roman." Like, literally. It was corny. It was corny. It was wildly pretentious. That's the thing. It's pretentious. It's trying to come across as smarter than it is, given what it kind of does near the end of the movie. Like I said, like, just, it's something to where you could just teach this movie side by side with another movie and show there is a way you could do a story like this, or kind of like it, and here's how, or at least here's something better. I hate when I see oh, well, you didn't like Haunting of Sharon Tate, that means you gotta have a problem with this movie. Like, no. Like, maybe...
Yeah, because clearly that and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are the exact same film.
It's like, no, if you live in a world where context doesn't exist, sure.
Well, there's always Twitter.
That's where I see lines like that, is on Twitter all the time.
Of course.
So, but again, it's one of those movies where you brought up Halloween 6 earlier. Thorn Cult, same writer.
Now it's all coming in. And hey, this would have a cult in it too, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But it's one of those cases where I'm like, I can't wait to see what this guy does next. Between this and that OJ movie he just did, what in the hell is... Before this, I haven't seen
9/11, the real story.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, I can't wait. Oh my god.
The real Diary of Anne Frank.
As a lover of bad movies, I'm like, I just want to see what the hell this guy's... Is he going to do a John Benet Ramsey movie where, like, Bigfoot did it? The one... I gotta see the one he did before Haunting of Sharon Tate. He did an Amityville movie that was about the DeFeo murders. So I'm like... Okay, now I kind of want to see that one too.
Yikes.
He can do documentaries. He did Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street documentary, and Crystal Lake Memories about the Friday the 13th films. He can do that. But this, oh man, it's just as...
No, honey, no. No.
But please continue. Dearie. Oh my god. Yeah, Haunting of Sharon Tate. I'm going to do an episode on that before too long.
Woof. Okay, number 4. This could have been higher, but there's a one that I want to give it the glory of being number 1, and there's a couple that I'm just like, no, they were more impressive in how bad they were. But The Hustle.
You watched The Hustle. Oh. You were telling me the other day, you're like, I think I might watch The Hustle.
Oh my god. I saw the trailer.
Yeah.
And for a split second, I'm like, is this Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? Did they remake Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? And then I saw it's like, oh, it's 2 women instead. I'm like, all right. I mean, there's a way to remake a movie. It's like we're reversing the gender here, so it's going to be 2 con women, maybe Con and some guy. And I'm like, yeah, you can do this. And then I started seeing some of the jokes, and I'm like, fucking did it again. Reverse the gender, slap girl power on it, and then don't do jack shit, and you've got yourself a movie. Like, it just... Oh my god. This was so, like, this was more than any of the other ones I saw, that I thought got lazy with how they were, trying to shoehorn their message in. This was the worst. One, because Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is one of my favorite comedies.
It's a great fucking movie.
I like that itself was a remake, and by the way, an example of how you can do a remake right.
Yeah.
Because I like it just as much as the original. I think what was the original called? Bedtime Story.
Yeah.
Which was, I think it was David Niven and Marlon Brando. And Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is a much more cynical movie with, in my opinion, a perfect ending.
Totally.
And this movie, like, some of the worst miscasting I've ever seen. Anne Hathaway, 100% wrong. Can't get more wrong than that. Rebel Wilson, 80% wrong. I honestly, if you're going to go like, well, we want a, fat, slobby, kind of like obnoxious, I'm like, I would have gone with Melissa McCarthy. She's way better at it.
Yeah.
I think she also would have been way funnier. I think if you here's what happened. This is what bothers me. This movie was trying to do the Heat formula. Only they're like, well, we're not going to get Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. But I look at him like it's clear they probably just wanted those two actresses who would have been way better in this movie. It wouldn't have saved the movie because the writing is fucking trash.
Yeah.
I mean, it is some of the worst writing I have seen in a comedy of this type. It was Michael Caine and Steve Martin in the original. And Steve Martin was the loud American, and Michael Caine was I want to say he's living on the Riviera, but I want to say he's supposed to be British. Anne Hathaway is doing a terrible British accent. And Rebel Wilson just has her normal standard accent. But Steve Martin, there is a certain class to Steve Martin where even when he's doing slapstick and going for broke, you still feel like you're watching kind of a classier, almost vaudevillian performance. Whereas Rebel Wilson, I'm like, this is scraping bottom of the barrel so hard.
Yeah.
Like, so freaking hard. And what kills me is how they didn't adapt anything. It is the same goddamn movie as Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, only infinitely worse.
That's what I hated about it. It's one of the main things I hated about the movie.
They don't...
Because if you've seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, you know all the plot turns it's going to make. So you're in this movie, you're watching this bad movie, waiting for what you know is going to happen with certain characters. So there's no surprise. There was one surprise at the end. The biggest surprise for me at the end was that there was no surprise. No.
That they did the exact same ending, which... For a movie that wanted to be like, yeah, it's a bunch of girls sticking it to the man, down with the patriarchy, they get okay, spoiler alert, I guess. Fast forward to the next one. The original Dirty Rotten Scoundrels movie, which you should see.
Yeah.
It ends the same way that this movie does, only the genders, they reverse the genders in this movie. So how this movie ends, spoilers, is... the two ladies that they're trying to con this whole time, it turns out that the two ladies that are trying to con this guy, they get played. This guy was conning them all along. And I thought, well, there's no way they're going to do that in this movie because, this is all about, they're doing the whole thing about, this ladies need to, take it back. And it's like, don't we deserve this? And they get completely screwed. And not only that, he comes back at the end, just like in the other movie, recruits them, and then, is kind of let's all work together. So he, the guy, completely shows them up, and then hilariously, the one out they try to give is, well, I learned everything from my Nana, the great con artist woman Medusa. And I'm like, bullshit! Bull fucking shit! You literally wrote a story where the guy plays these girls and then tried to say that, well, I learned it from Mama. So
yeah.
I'm like, that was the one thing I'm like, well, I didn't think they were going to do that ending, and they did, so
or
they
if it shows his mom and it's Glenn Headley.
That would have been amazing. I think she was already dead at this point, sadly. She's an amazing actress in her own right. She was amazing in the original movie. They completely undercut the message of their movie by doing that. And what kills me is by doing that, it makes the original Dirty Rotten Scoundrels look like the way better feminist piece.
Yeah.
By far, because at the end, she screws the two guys. And she pretty much is running the show. And there's you know what the key difference is? What I love about this is, again, spoilers for the original Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. When she takes off with that money and Steve Martin reveals, like, Steve Martin's the one who goes, that lousy, stinking, no good, and Michael Caine is laughing. Pure respect all over his face that he got played. He's like, you know, she's terrible. He's like, yes, isn't she? Mm-hmm. Isn't she? Like he's completely in love. Like, you know what? Girl, you did it. You played me. That was a work of art. Bra fucking up. Both the characters in this movie are such lousy characters. Talk about how not to write female characters. Are such lousy characters that they both is like lousy, stinking, no good, like throwing a tantrum. Mm-hmm. I'm like, they completely missed the point of Michael Caine's character. At the end, the dude treats what should be the Michael Caine character, the Brit, the worst. What made it way funnier in the original is that, you know, she goes up to Steve Martin's character. Don't worry, he's a mute because he's the idiot. Doesn't want her, but instead does that to Anne Hathaway's character. Just a complete failure of a remake of a movie all around. Horrible feminist piece movie. I'm like, this should be taught in film class about how not to do a remake and how not to write a movie where you think you're like having some kind of like, ooh, fun feminist, like, you know, role reversal movie. Because in the end, I'm like, oh, these two clods just came off looking like morons.
The nicest thing I can say about it is I remember it being only like 80 minutes.
No, it goes fast. I was missing Ian McDermott's performance from the original. The poor butler does nothing, and Ian McDermott's hilarious. I'm sorry about your VHS. I'm going to replace it. Oh, shut up. My favorite. I wish somebody in the internet would clip this over Emperor Palpatine. Yeah. But my favorite is when Ian McDermott bends over and leans over Steve Martin's face and just says, "Welcome to hell." I was like, I want Palpatine to say that, but yeah, an amazing original movie, and this was one of the worst. It's definitely one of the worst remakes I've ever seen. Hands down.
My mom just watched it the other day. She called me about it. She goes, so I rented The Hustle. I'm like, why? She's like, I know. It's the only thing there. She calls me later. She goes, well, that was terrible. I'm like, I told you. Oh, well, my number 4 is also a comedy. Loquisha. Oh, God. Do you remember this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see it, but
I saw
the trailer.
They dumped, this thing was supposed to get a release, and then its trailer was so... It was so voted down that it was actually trending on Twitter for how poorly received the trailer for this movie was. Okay. Which, honestly, if I was the filmmaker, I'd probably be like, maybe I can, like, ride this a little bit. Because this was clearly not made to gain any sort of national attention. It's a very, very micro-budgeted movie that was probably made just with the intent to just be dumped on a streaming service. But then the original distributor, I believe, ended up getting rid of the movie because of the controversy, and then it randomly, like, not that long after, was just dumped on Amazon Prime. And like the day before, I think Laura and I were like, I wonder if this movie's ever gonna get released. A day later, like, hey, you want to watch Loquisha? It's a movie that it doesn't rise up. Because look, I'll say that, like, you could take this plot and you get clever enough writers could maybe do something with it. The plot of the movie is about this guy who's a bartender who's always known for giving, like, wise sage advice at the bar, but it's all terrible. It's all stuff like, it's always darkest before the dawn, and it's done unironically.
Thanks, Dark Knight.
Yeah, and so he ends up becoming a call-in talk show host, but they all think that he's a black woman named Loquisha. And the movie's cheap all around. Like, the post-production effects that are put in are bad. There's some bad dubbing in it. When it's showing little things like an ad on a bus and, like, an image on a phone. It's all laughably done terribly. But you know, if the movie was still funny, it'd be like, you know, hey, whatever. It's a low-budget movie, fine. It's not. It's a really loud and obnoxious movie that you can't even buy into the premise. Because the guy who stars in it also wrote it and directed it.
Okay.
And he can't do this voice. It'd be one thing if it's like, okay, like I guess I can buy someone thinking that this is this black woman on the radio. No, it sounds like someone just doing a poor job of doing a stupid voice.
So,
it sounds
instant fail.
It sounds like just he's doing like an old gay man. Like, and the advice he's giving isn't even good. Yeah, and so you can't even buy into the concept of the
fabulous
movie. And at the beginning of it, when he's at the bar, he randomly just starts doing like an Indian guy voice, but doing it terribly. It feels like it's a movie made from a guy who likes doing this at parties and people are drunk enough to tell him he's funny, so he decided to put it into a movie. And it doesn't work. It's just obnoxious. You can't even buy this premise because it's so obnoxious and badly written and badly acted. And my favorite part is when he quits, and so they have this actual black woman being the voice on the radio, but she starts doing a bad job. So you have a scene where, unironically, he's lecturing her on how to be a better black woman. Like, I know I saw when this trailer came out, and even when the reviews came out, there were certain people that were wanting to stick up for it just because it was edgy. And I'm like, no. It's like, I get it. The movie...
You gotta do that for something that's, you know, legitimately good.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like...
Just because it's edgy doesn't mean it's good. Like, I'll stick up for something that's edgy if I'm like, oh, no, it's legitimately good.
No, totally. Like, in the case of this, it's like, okay, I realize that this movie is probably pissing off people you don't like, and it's an edgy movie, but don't stick up for this. It's like, that doesn't make you look like you're edgy. It makes you look like an idiot with shitty taste in comedy if you're sticking up for this movie. No.
Well said.
Yeah, like, no. Like, I mean, it's a movie that it was fun to review it. It was fun to watch reviews of it, because there's enough you could pick apart about the film. No, this movie wishes it was something like Soul Man. Soul Man's not even that good.
No.
But
it's Soul Man I enjoyed as a kid. The more I grew up, the more I'm just like, you know, fuck getting into the whole like problematic argument about it. I'm just like, this honestly just doesn't make me laugh.
No, it's just not that good. Like, it's not, again, like it's... C. Thomas Howell is never believable as a black guy.
That's one of my biggest problems with it. I enjoyed the reverse take with Eddie Murphy dressing as the white guy in the boss on SNL. So that shit made me laugh. That still makes me laugh.
Soul Man at least was trying to be provocative. Mm-hmm. Like it was trying to be smarter than what it was. You at least felt that there was a little bit of effort there.
Blazing Saddles as a slapsticky type of Mel Brooks comedy, like, still holds up. I still love that.
Oh yeah, it still holds up.
Laugh all the time.
This has the production quality of The Room. This is not even like you can tell.
Mel Brooks can make a good movie. Like, he knows how to film a movie.
And again, Soul Man, not a good movie, but you can tell they were trying.
Like Spaceballs is still a good Star Wars movie. Still better than the prequels.
It's better than Rise.
Better than Rise is still better than Rise of Skywalker.
No, this was like this was like The Room territory of quality, really, and even some of the acting, but this belongs more so in that camp than it does like a theatrical bad comedy.
Okay, I debated so hard with this one, because this would have been my number one.
Mm-hmm.
It's number 3, but this would have been my number 1. But I kind of don't want to give it the honor.
Mm-hmm.
because there's a couple other ones, you know, that I'm being paged. Well, it'll have to wait. Cats.
Oh, I was wondering where it was going to fall on your list.
I almost, because I was considering it, I'm like, man, should I do number one? But Cats just... It's too obvious a choice. I mean, it's terrible. It is... It's hard to say objectively. It's hard to say objectively. Like, objectively, I think it would be number two on my list. Subjectively, it drops below what is going to be my number two because my number two pissed me off more. And Cats, at least, I'm just... That is an experience that I've never had and never will probably have again. Like,
I loved it.
It was like... It was Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
I felt like I was staring into the eyes of Cthulhu and just had seen the chaos of the universe. And like, it was like Into the Mouth of Madness. I went in, saw shit that no human should ever have to see, and left just completely like traumatized. I'm like, I have now seen the horrors of the old gods, and I have not come out better. I have just come out changed. It just, everything on every level, wrong. Just, I can't think of a movie where I'm like, wow, you got every single goddamn thing in this wrong. The director, wrong. The cast, wrong. I shouldn't say all the cast. Idris Elba was one of the few that came out with any sort of slight dignity intact. Not much. Shred of dignity. Mostly probably because he was playing the villain, but the effects, wrong. The costumes, wrong. The dance numbers, wrong. Wrong on every single level. And the two, my number one I think maybe is wrong on every single level. My number two pick will have a couple things I'm like, right, to a certain degree. So, but yeah, Cats, oh my god.
I at least respect this movie.
I will say I respect it for being the horror as it is. It's like a serial killer. It's like, what a monstrous, horrible thing you've done, but like, I just gotta respect the insanity of it.
I feel like it's a movie made for me, where I'm like, I love that era of late 70s, early 80s musical, and this kind of fits with that. So I honestly really love this movie.
Does it really? Because
have you seen The Apple? Or
yeah, I guess.
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band?
The Wiz. I'm like...
The Wiz, Xanadu.
Yeah, but those did it better.
I will say I like those movies better.
Like, this was such a pale imitation. Because this is too postmodern. Like, it's like postmodern trying to do that.
It wore its weirdness on its sleeve, though. Like, it was upfront about what it was. Yeah. It was unapologetic about it.
It's the only movie where I'm going to see Ian McKellen going, touch wood, and then, like, rubbing his head against milk. I swear, when Judi Dench... I don't think I'm ever going to be able to watch this movie high, because I think I'm going to run out screaming. Yeah. I think it's gonna be like a bad acid trip.
Yeah.
I even just token up a bit. I think it's just not going to be for me, because like, I watched that movie stone cold sober and was terrified. And when Judi Dench turns towards the screen, they are not dogs. I'm like, she's stirring through my soul. Stop. I
think I've seen too many things like Strokemon for that to have.
That's what killed me when we were talking. I'm like, it reminded me of Strokemon. I think it was Strokemon.
The Smurfs.
The Smurfs was pretty bad, but because all that makeup like smeared and you can tell.
Oh yeah.
They're rubbing against each other. But no, it was of the porno reviews you did. Strokemon and
SpongeNob SquareNuts?
Tugrats? No, Tugrats.
Oh, Tugrats.
Those two terrified me the most.
Yeah.
Tugrats just because it was creepy, and Strokemon just because I'm like, this is a Lovecraftian horror from another universe. It just, oh god, what a fucking movie. I'm trying to...
I feel like I got way more out of Cats than I did Rise of Skywalker. I liked it way better than Rise of Skywalker.
Again, I don't want to give Rise of Skywalker the honor of being that high on the list.
Oh, I get that.
So Cats, definitely higher. Also, Rebel Wilson in Cats shows up again. But, yeah, just as wrong as a movie can be on every single level.
Were you glad you saw it?
Yeah, I'm glad I saw it once.
Yeah.
I'm glad, in the same way, like, everybody should probably see a dead body in their life once.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like,
it's a Stand By Me rule.
Yeah, you should face that fear.
Mm-hmm.
You'll leave transformed, maybe not for the better, but you should have that experience and face the dark things in human existence, and cats was one of them. What can I say but cats? And I'm not even a huge fan of the musical. So
it's not even one of my favorites.
No, it's like one of those musicals
I think it's fine.
It's got only 3 decent songs in it.
Yeah,
the rest are all
like
just kind of
okay.
forgettable for me. So I just yuck.
I need to when I visit next time I visit Springfield, I can't wait to talk to Sarah about this movie.
Oh, please do. I want to hear what Sarah has to say about it.
Yeah. I was talking to Dave the other day. I wish I asked Dave about it, but I forgot.
Do you think she'll love hate it like you? Or
she saw it. She probably didn't. I don't think she liked it as much as me. Just kind of given some of the tweets I saw her say. But we were trading back and forth gifs of it, like the catnip.
You need to do your own, like, just go back to Springfield, like, Cats review, you and Sarah. I want to see you two talk about it.
Yeah, next time I visit, I would totally do it. I definitely want to watch this movie again. My number 2. Here's my number 3 is one Sarah definitely wouldn't have gone to see with me. My number 3 is Unplanned.
Oh God! Yeah,
that one was R-rated. I forgot it was last year. It feels like
I saw your review. That was enough for me.
It felt like 2 years ago that I saw this movie, but I'm like, oh shit, that was only like last freaking year. I'm like, oh yeah, that's number 3. It's a movie that, aside from the movie just being dreadful, it's one where even the people distributing it and making it were trying to play the victim card with it. When it got slapped with the R rating, they're like, oh, the MPAA is being unfair and giving us an R rating. I saw this movie. There is no way that they thought they were going to get a PG-13. No way. I've seen slasher movies that aren't as bloody as this movie. So, they're being wildly disingenuous if they're going out and saying, like, oh, we're shocked we got an R. And then trying to say that, oh, giving us the R rating means that they're admitting abortion is violent. No, if you did a movie of an open heart surgery and the room was caked in blood, that would still get an R rating.
It definitely looked like, I call them wingnut movies, which is your hard right or hard left films.
It's an anti-Planned Parenthood movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, they just appeal to a weird fringe.
It's a movie that's not even about having any rational conversation about the issue, because it's just,
it never is with that type of movie.
The only one I can think of where I was like, okay, this one actually was the third God's Not Dead movie. Mm-hmm. This one,
which who would have thought that would be the one?
Yeah,
like when you said that, I was in shock. I'm like, the God's Not Dead series, that was the one that finally was at least trying to be a little reasonable. It's the one that bombed. Yeah, of course, because of course it bombed, because that's not what frickin' wingnuts want to see.
This was, aside from, it's like, okay, I highly doubt the story really happened like this, but whatever. I've seen a lot of true story movies where they're making up stuff and the movie's fine. In this case, it's so overdramatic, like when she witnesses the abortion and it's this CGI special effect image on the sonogram of the fetus getting sucked through, like, no, God, no!
and then you're just sitting there going, well, it's still better CGI than Cats.
So everyone, the characters in the movie that are the ones that are always out there protesting, they're written, they might as well be like Rod and Todd Flanders. They're written as just the nicest, most milquetoast characters you could find. But when you know the reality,
bringing in the sheep,
when you know the reality of some situations, like her going out there and saying, hey, would you mind not videotaping this and having your camera set up, and they're like, no, we want to keep the camera rolling in case anyone tries attacking us. And I'm like, no, in real life, they want you to turn the camera off because there's been cases where they're getting license plate numbers of people in the background and tracking them down at their homes. So the movie's being wildly dishonest in a lot of...
Libtard propaganda!
Yeah, it's not even good at it, though. Like, the villain in the movie...
That's super bad, when you can't even be, like, good at your propaganda.
Yeah, if it's, like, something...
At least
like,
I'll respect certain movies where I'm like, oh, this is a decent-looking movie. Like,
yeah, I could at least be like, well, you know, the filmmaking's good, or it was entertaining, or the acting's fine, whatever. This, no, like, the acting's bad, and the villain, my favorite villain of the year, who is the head of Planned Parenthood in this, or the manager of that branch. Did you watch Buffy?
yeah.
She's played by Jenny Calendar from Buffy. So she's the...
Is this the line, or is this like, it's like her Big Mac and fries and her milk?
Yeah. She's amazing in this, because she is just written as pure evil, like in all these movies, where it's like, this isn't about any kind of conversation about abortion or parenthood. This is just portraying Planned Parenthood as being run by Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS, where when our main...
I watched that movie, by the way.
Yeah, that's kind of what this is. So, like, Abby...
No, but really, Elsa She-Wolf.
Yeah, get Diane Thorne out of retirement. So Abby, our lead, finds out she's pregnant and is in the bathroom. Cheryl, evil manager, comes in and is just like, you know, we can take care of that for you. And that line, that amazing line in the movie, where she says to Abby, she goes, fast food places make their money off of the little things like fries and soda. Abortion is our fries and soda. It's an entertaining movie. Yeah, I mean, the movie is... you know going into it what kind of movie this is going to be.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
It delivers in that aspect, certainly. It was one where I couldn't find anyone to go see it with me. And so the review was me describing this movie to Laura and basically just ruining her day describing this
I probably
film.
would have just gotten too pissed off at it.
I wasn't, because I've seen 100 of these movies.
I like the really weird ones, like Old Fashioned made me laugh.
Saving Christmas.
Even God's Not Dead was so kind of ridiculous. It kind of made, but like when you really get into that hardcore propaganda,
But they have...
I don't even like sitting through Michael Moore movies. So
Yeah.
that's a case though where you're preaching to the choir, where I'm like, you just... Like,
He's a more talented filmmaker.
He's a more talented filmmaker, but and I always have a problem where I'm like, yeah, they're documentaries. Like, I don't know, I always have that argument. I'm just like, when his stuff wins Best Documentary of the Year, I'm like, what are we qualifying as documentary now?
Sure.
Like, you know, but I'm just not into that. I like being talked to like I'm a reasoning, rational, thinking, goddamn adult.
Same.
And so many of these, like, projects, like, it's the right-wing ones are the ones that stick out the most. But, you know, even when there's kind of left-wing ones, I just kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, whatever. Like, I have no desire to, like, sit through them. I'm like,
no, I don't.
I'll read the goddamn news. Like, I'll do my own research. Thank you. You know, I don't need to see, you know, a movie just trying to parse it into little bite-sized tidbits for me because they think I'm a 5-year-old.
But this one's big celebrity cameo, though, is the My Pillow guy. I'm dead serious. He's the one who comes in at the end to take down the Planned Parenthood sign. And it just feels... I don't know, like... I'm not gonna say, like... I'm not gonna sit here and be like, you shouldn't release this movie. No, because they made it. They got rights to release it and distribute it or whatever.
Release whatever you goddamn want. That doesn't mean it's good.
Absolutely. So,
doesn't mean I can't sit here
it's
and be
still...
like, oh, this is a piece of shit.
It's still an irresponsible movie. Like,
oh yeah,
it is. But like I said, they have the right to make it, and put it out there.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, you can't stop things just because they're irresponsible.
Yeah. And
because then how do you judge? How do you decide? So I'm definitely not for that. But I can sit here and just call it a piece of shit.
Oh yeah, right. Like, I mean, I'm glad when this comes out because it means I get a lot of material out of it.
I mean, you can call it a piece of shit. I haven't seen it.
I'm just used to these.
I've seen enough clips. I feel like, well, I can make a fair... I can make an educated
can.
guess. It's pretty shitty.
You can.
Make an educated guess.
It's over the top. It's corny. It's over the top in not a good way. It is made for shock value. That's what I mean. Like, they knew this was going to get an R. There's a scene where they're walking a woman to the lobby or the waiting room or whatever, and it looks like you're watching a virus horror film, like Contagion or Rabid, where she's just leaking blood out of her, like between down her leg and like across the floor. I'm like, oh yeah, this was going to get a PG-13, sure. But again, like, I wasn't sitting there.
It's the conspiracy. It's a liberal conspiracy they're all in line against unplanned. Yeah. They knew that was going to be bigger than Endgame, and they had to stop it.
I was just sitting there going, "This is playing out like I thought it would." I've seen so many of these movies at this point that I didn't have any kind of angry reaction watching it. I saved that for Laura when I was describing her the movie. Well, that's my number 3. It had to be on there somewhere.
Okay, the last 2 I know by heart. So, number 2, The Lion King.
Now I'm wondering what... Oh, okay.
I think you can probably figure that out. What's been missing from this list so far. But, fucking hated this movie so much. Cats was mind-blowing in its awfulness. The Lion King is such a black hole of nothing. It literally just sucks life out of the universe. Just nothing. I'm like, I've never seen such a waste of celluloid or of digital or of space. I just sat there, I'm like, wow, that offered me not a goddamn thing. And when I realized 10 minutes into it, I'm like, okay, this is literally a shot-for-shot remake. Yeah. I was never more bored than sitting there for the next 2 hours just going like, here's every exact scene I remember. Like, worse than The Hustle, which was fairly close, but I'm like, every exact scene I remember. Only not as good. Yeah. The only difference is the effects themselves, if you take out the fact that they have no emotion, which may not be on the CGI artist, that may have been a creative decision by the director or Disney or whatever, are pretty decent. But to what effect? The fact that it got nominated for Best Effects, I don't know what to make of that, because I'm just like, I don't want it to win. Then again, I don't want to punish CGI artists who probably did a damn good job. But when your decision is to not give your animals any emotion, when Simba watches his father fall off a cliff and just goes, nah, like, how do you award Best Effects for that? It's so tough. I don't want to punish those poor guys, but I'm like, Jesus, like, they looked terrible because of that decision. Once again, John Oliver, just worst Zazu. I hated him as Zazu. I'm like, that I thought was almost insulting because I'm like, fucking Rowan Atkinson is still alive. Yeah. He could just do the voice again. You brought frickin' James Earl Jones back. Now, James Earl Jones was a different case. He sounded like the saddest, oldest Mufasa ever. I'm like, okay, you do not have the power you once had. You shouldn't have to. It's not fair to you. You are old. Like, you shouldn't have to voice a lion that should be in the cat equivalent years of, like, maybe 30s or 40 or something, like this big booming, like, that stuck out. Maybe Timon and Pumbaa I thought were, like, passable. I'm like, I didn't hate them, but, you know, it's funny because, like, Dumbo I rank lower on the list. A lot of people, like, I never got this thing about Dumbo where people are like, yeah, and Dumbo was sticking it to Disney because that whole park and Michael Keaton, that was a spoof of Disneyland. Did you catch that? And I'm like, if that's the case, it was a really shitty spoof. Yeah. Didn't know what it was spoofing because I'm like, I didn't get that much Disneyland out of it. It would have been years before Disneyland. This would have, like, Disney would have been at the age where he would have looked at that park as a child and went, oh, and that would have been the inspiration for him for Disneyland. So, like, as a spoof, it made no sense. You want a much better spoof that sticks it to Disney? This fucking movie's existence. This tells you exactly where Disney is right now with some of the shit they're doing. And it's just nothing. It's just scraping bottom of the barrel. As far as I'm concerned, this is the worst Disney remake they have ever done, because it didn't even offer anything new. Dumbo, not a good movie. It still made my top 10 list here. It at least offered something new. I'm like, well,
technically, yeah.
That's not good. That's different good.
Yeah.
I did not like Lion King, the original, as much as Dumbo, but Lion King for me is easily a top 10 Disney movie. I don't know how I would rank all the top 10s. Maybe it would be top 5, but I mean, it to me is like a classic, one that should not be touched. And to just do this to the Lion King, a gorgeous movie, like the animated film. I don't care if you think, oh, Kim of the White Lion did it first. Like, it's still a gorgeous movie. It's a colorful movie. This was so bland. Doug put it best, like, would you want to go to Africa after seeing this? I'm like, no. I feel like they desaturated everying in this movie. How do you take something as pretty as Lion King and then just suck the color out of it? So, yeah, no, I hated this movie.
It felt like, because I didn't like it either, when I was watching it, it's actually kind of similar for me with what I was saying about Unplanned, where when I was sitting through Lion King, I didn't have that big of a reaction because I felt like I've just seen this kind of bad Disney remake now like 3 or 4 times. So by the time I get to the Lion King, it's bad, yeah, but I had more of an extreme reaction to like Beauty and the Beast because that was early on in this phase of Disney remakes. But still not good at all. And
it's just Beauty and the Beast, as terrible as it was, it offered a couple things new. I'll say this: I liked Kevin Kline as Belle's father in that.
Yeah, he was good.
And it was kind of batshit crazy when it's like, I invented the first washing machine.
Yeah,
true feminist. You know, like it's attempts to try to like shoehorn, like, you know, try to overcome the Stockholm problem syndrome, or whatever, like just kind of made it worse. Like it was more fascinating. Or Cinderella was a gorgeous movie at least. You know, a lot of those Lion King, I'm just like, it offers nothing. It is so devoid of any charm or reason to exist. And they know none of them have reason to exist, but at least they try certain things. I'm like, yeah, this just to me was just bottom of the barrel, just a black hole.
Now we gotta wait for him to do Simba's Pride. Oh, I don't know why I need to look. My number 2 is this thing that Ryan and I went to go see called The Least of These. This was the movie where Stephen Baldwin plays an Australian missionary, complete with bad accent, where he's...
I was gonna say, I was just thinking, I'm like, Stephen Baldwin does... There are actors. And Stephen Baldwin does not seem like the type of actor who could do an accent.
He can't in this.
Let alone an easier one like Australian.
What's frustrating about this movie is that the plot of it, there's nothing wrong with the plot of this film. The plot is a true story about a guy who in India, I believe, who with his family were murdered when they were asleep in their car. These people came out and set the car on fire and burned them alive. And it's this horribly tragic story. And the movie is from the point of view of this journalist who the movie is kind of at first this journalist doesn't like this guy and then starts to like him, but then it's kind of his fault that he dies, at least how they portray it in the movie, and how he's kind of dealing with that guilt. But with what I just told you...
I was going to say, this actually sounds like it would be a good movie.
Yeah, it could be. It easily could be. The problem is that you have to really try to take a movie with this plot line based on a true story of something that really happened like this and make it so bad that you leave laughing. Like, you gotta try.
Wow.
You gotta try. And like Ryan and I started our review not being able to really talk about it at first because we kept laughing so hard because the editing is so bad. This accent Stephen Baldwin is doing. This main character who just kept popping into frame a couple of times, just like there would be something going on with the missionaries, and then our main character would pop up just like, hello! And we...
This sounds like watching Schindler's List and going, oh man, that movie killed me.
Yeah. And so we were getting from wherever this movie was made, we were getting people. The funniest thing about the movie is looking at the comments from people who maybe are from the area this movie were made and just screaming at me and Ryan. I'm like, it's not just us. This movie got terrible reviews. So I was talking to Ryan. I was glad to have him there because he's a professional editor. And a big problem with this movie is the editing. How random things will be subtitled that shouldn't be subtitled, and subtitling going over the credits, and the credits going over the subtitling, vice versa. And just really taking the blow out of this story, the punch that this story should have, and doing such a bad job with the characters, the acting, the editing, the pacing, because it's a boring movie to sit through. It was so boring and just...
Sounds like my Lion King experience.
Yeah, man. Like, it was a rough sit. Like, but to have all that be so bad that you are just left laughing at the incompetence of this movie. It's wildly insulting to the people the movie's about. Like, almost like that Haunting of Sharon Tate movie. That was easier to sit through than this was.
Wow.
And we didn't get yelled at by anyone for laughing.
And the Haunting of Sharon Tate is like, and this wasn't the most tasteless thing I saw this year.
No, like, no, this was worse. Yeah, this was way worse than Haunting of Sharon Tate, because this movie was a lot longer, and it was way more boring to sit through than Haunting of Sharon Tate. Haunting of Sharon Tate was
real nice.
Yeah, that was at least only like 90 minutes or so. So yeah, check out that review or reviews for any of these if you feel there's some stuff that's missing, because in the case of this, we saw it earlier in the year, so I'm like, I know I'm probably leaving some stuff out here, but no, I will remember Stephen Baldwin with the fake Australian accent. Unplanned was easier to sit through than this movie. Believe it or not, it was better made than this movie was.
Was Usual Suspects the one good movie he did? That was Stephen Baldwin, right?
Yeah.
Or was that the other? There's too many Baldwins out there. Yeah, that was Stephen Baldwin. I'm like trying to think what else.
Stephen Baldwin.
Yeah, like what else was he in that I really liked him in?
Kind of like One
Wasn't
Tough
Flintstones.
Cop. One Tough Cop.
Oh, okay, yeah. I feel like it's been a while though.
Yeah, dude, that's a good question. There's got to be something. I mean, I know some people have a soft spot for Biodome. I don't.
No, I don't. I like William Atherton in it. That's
yeah. Are we at number 1?
Yeah, I think this is it.
Yes.
Are you ready for this? Playing with fire. I just wanted to give it the honor. I wanted, you know what?
I can see why.
I feel like you earned it.
Yeah.
You worked hard to be the shittiest movie of the year. Mm-hmm. Certainly the shittiest kids film I've seen all year, hands down.
Yeah.
Whether you want to say it's the worst movie of the year, I will say this, since you dragged me to a lot of shitty kids movies, so that was at least the last half of the year, a chunk of what I saw, I will declare it definitively the shittiest kids movie of the year. Mm-hmm. So incompetent on so many levels. The acting's atrocious. The editing's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
So many scenes, like just basic filmmaking fail.
It feels unfinished.
Yeah, it feels unfinished. So did Rise of Skywalker, but Rise of Skywalker I'll say is a better movie than this. Mm-hmm. I will give it that. Like, it unfinished, rushed, production hell, a baby shitting into a hazmat suit and blowing up in John Cena's
And that's not the only shit joke.
What we thought was one shit joke got stretched out into 3 or 4.
Because it was one in the trailer.
Yeah, it was one in the trailer, and that one shit joke was part of a long shit joke masterpiece that stretched on for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. It was the shit joke that would not end. The only movie I can think of that I have ever seen, I was trying to think of a movie that had done this, with not one cute dog take, not 2 cute dog takes, but 11. One cute dog take, I'm like, all right, maybe not gonna be good. But 2 cute dog takes, I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm getting pretty angry. 3, I'm pissed off. 4, I'm like, this is trash.
Yeah.
11, I'm just like, we have broken the space-time continuum. I ain't even angry anymore. I just like, this just shows you that they have given up. They're not even trying to make a movie. They're not even assembling a series of scenes with actors in it and written dialogue together in a way that you can call it a movie. We are literally just randomly cutting to a dog going,
The funniest part of the movie was the audience. The set of old ladies that were sitting in front of us.
The set of old ladies who were just having none of this. The one guy who was randomly enjoying it. The kids who were mostly bored until there'd be a random, like, shit joke. And then when the baby shit joke happened with just blowing the fucking baby diarrhea and John Cena's face just right in the mask, that one old lady up front to the right of us, just way in the distance, just here, ew. She was having none of it. She was like, come on. You could just hear the frustration from all. It's like, really? Like, I thought this was going to be stupid kids movie, but now I'm just offended.
Because we went into this knowing it was going to be bad, but when it really set in was the first second of the movie with the establishing shot of the woods and the soundtrack, the do 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 do. Don't believe me, just watch. And our heads just sank.
I remember turning to you and just going, oh, it's going to be a long movie. I'm like, wow, amazing. 5 seconds in. Congrats.
It's one of those great bad kids movies.
You nailed it. This is the sort of thing you would have only seen in the 90s. Another shitty...
He was bushwhacked.
Yeah, that's what you said. You said it is the... And you're right. It is the bushwhacked for our generation. From now on, I'm going to, instead of saying bushwhacked, I'm going to go playing with fire.
It's one of those great gift of a bad kids movie where it's like we watch it and we're just... There's just this vibe of like we're all in this together.
When fans ask us what's the worst movie reviewed, I always say Garbage Pail Kids. Not because it is legitimately the worst. There's probably ones that I was even more bored through that I disliked more, but I want to give it the honor. It's like it tried so hard to be the worst. I'm like, you know what? I give it the honor.
With Nuki.
Yeah, I give it the honor. So, Playing with Fire. That is my number 1.
My number 1 is a movie that I, of course, never heard of until I went into the film. It's a movie called El Coyote.
Oh, I know because you told me about this.
Yeah, what did you think? Did you have any guesses in your head of what my number 1 might be?
Not really. I didn't think it would be Playing with Fire.
Were you like, it's going to be something I've never heard of?
Yeah, I was like, it's going to be something I never heard of.
This feels like it's just... it feels like such a lightning in a bottle bad movie that I've seen since like Dancing It's On.
From what you told me, I feel like this might have been my number 1 had I seen it.
It probably
I haven't
would
seen many films this year.
Dude, it has the honor of being the only movie that I've ever been to where by the end of it, I was the only one in the theater because everyone else had walked out, like sporadically throughout the movie.
I wish I had seen this.
Yeah, I loved being there because I'm like, I never would have heard of this movie in Spring. This thing wouldn't have come to Springfield. Like, it happened to be at the theater that we go see all the movies at. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I'll go ahead and go in and see it. It's got a ridiculous poster. So this is, again, it's called El Coyote. What it's about is, well, the subtitle of the poster says Italian Mafia versus Mexican Cartel. So it's this... even below like an Uwe
Scarface meets The
movie.
Godfather.
I wish. So it's this movie about a restaurant owner's son is taken by the Mexican cartel and is later killed. So the chef turns out to be ex-mafioso. So he gets a bunch of his gangster buddies to go down to Mexico to either pay off the ransom for his son, or later, when it turns out his son's dead, it turns into a revenge movie where there's this big firefight between these ex-mobsters and these cartel members. But the movie like I said, it's like a notch below being like an Uwe Ball movie. I feel like this is the movie that people thought that last Rambo movie was. Because
that one was on a lot of people's like worst of the year
This is way worse. The Rambo movie, I'm like, this is a lousy Rambo movie, but I'm like, it's pretty entertaining. This, no. This makes Rambo Last Blood look like Traffic. So it has elements to it that you would think would be from a comedy, but they're not. This is not a comedy. This is a movie where the cartel members might as well be Speedy Gonzalez and his friends, and the mobsters feel like do you remember the Mad TV sketch where they're spoofing the Olive Garden commercials?
Yeah.
That is the ex-mobsters in this movie.
Unlimited soup and breadsticks, yeah, just like the old country.
Yeah, they're in the firefight. A couple of the gangsters will be in the car just talking about their sandwich. Like, oh, then I got this nice pastrami on this sandwich. And it'll just cut to a restaurant where they're all giving each other shit and talking about breaking their dicks off in people's asses. Like, it comes out of nowhere. When we're introduced to them in the movie, it's this slow-mo shot in the airport, and I'm like, oh, I want to bang that stewardess in the ass. And then at the end of the movie, when they kill off all these cartel members, one of the mobsters is killed, and they're like, oh man, we lost Frankie. And the guy's like, yeah, don't worry about Frankie. Look, he had cancer out the ass. He wasn't going to live very long anyway. And then he goes, plus, he got to fulfill his lifelong dream of killing a bunch of fucking Mexicans. That's a line in the movie. Again.
Are we sure this wasn't an alt-right propaganda film?
Dude.
Who made this?
This felt like someone wanted to turn their own home movie into like an 80s canon movie, but didn't.
So was this just some little independent?
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah. Wow. It's written or the guy who stars in it either also directed it or wrote it or both. He had a hand in a lot of that. So this feels like it's like he's trying to make a canon movie, but doesn't realize what made the canon movies work or what made them charming. Like Last Blood, not a good movie, but knew how to at least be entertaining.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like the last half hour of that movie might as well be a Saw film. It's preposterous how violent it gets, but that's not boring. That's entertaining. This is. The biggest name in the movie is Tom Sizemore, who shows up a couple times in the movie as this corrupt senator. And the movie ends with our hero, our main guy, who's kind of this Michael Chiklis looking dude. He spends a lot of the movie in this bad wig until he takes that off later on. At the end, he blows up Tom Sizemore's house with a bazooka, and Tom Sizemore is in there with like a hooker that he bought, or like this call girl, and I'm like, wait a minute, what about this girl that the guy just blew up in his house?
Wow.
It's a lot of things like that, where it's like no one paused and was like, I don't know, let's maybe rewrite a little of this, a little of this, a little of that. I loved being there, though, because it was like the action movie equivalent of Dancing It's On, where it's like, I have stumbled into this movie that needs to be this kind of, like, cult bad movie, because there is a lot to make fun of.
All right, well, I'm gonna check it out if it ever gets a home video release.
Dude, when the cops pull over, when the main guy is with the cartel and the cops pull them over, he gets out of it by pretending to be Joe Pesci. The cop's like, "Oh man, I love your movies," and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm Joe Pesci. I love being in my Joe Pesci movies. Hey, don't mind those two Mexican bastards up front. Those are both just my drivers. Just ignore them. We're going back to the United States."
It sounds like a bad SNL sketch.
Kinda. The title of it and the poster of the movie looks like a fake movie poster you'd see in the background of a video game. Even the tagline, Mexican cartel versus Italian mafia. That sounds like a parody, but it's not.
We all win.
When the effects were...
That sounds like it could have been the title of the movie, Mexican Cartel versus Italian Mafia.
Then
movie.
It'd be like an asylum movie, and like a shark would pop up halfway into it. With the effects
this
are
sounds
terrible.
like an asylum.
The gun effects, the rocket effects, the explosion effects, they're they're bad. They're what I could do on my Pinnacle software, but on a big screen.
You gotta call Ryan up. Tell him the Asylum might have some competition.
So when I know when I'm doing one of my cheap movies, I'm like, I at least got to make it funny. So like this, which is I know that's the thing about this is it's not a comedy. When one guy walked out like 15 or so minutes in, and all these effects and dialogue and editing was just terrible. The other guy, it's maybe a 90-minute movie. The other guy left like a little over an hour into it, and I was like, at this point, just stay.
But, yeah, you may as well.
But here's what I think it was. He left right after the scene where it introduced the mafia guys who were going through the airport like, hey there, sweet cheeks, sit on daddy's lap. And when the guy left, I got to look at him, and he kind of was this Burt Young looking guy. So I'm like, maybe this hit too close to home. I was the only one there.
I am triggered.
I don't know how many theaters this movie was in. I don't know anyone else who saw this. I have to keep catching myself with the title because there was that Breaking Bad movie called El Camino, I believe. So I'm like, I got to catch myself on the title so I don't accidentally say that was the worst movie of the year because I haven't seen that movie, but I hear it's really damn good. Please watch this. Like, if you want that kind, if you want that dancing it's on experience,
right here.
Like this kind of like you get your drinks together and you watch this Uwe Ball, Neil Breen type action movie that's on screen. This auteur film, because a lot of those movies are auteur films, like The Room, like a Neil Breen movie. This is that. That is an action movie. And I loved being there. I loved that I just stumbled into this theater and found this movie.
I gotta check this out.
We'll have I'll do an episode on this at some point. This movie has to be discovered. Oh, that was my number one. El Coyote. I think
El Coyote and Playing with Fire. They both sound like they could be the same movie.
I hope that they're in the same.
Because Playing with Fire sounds like it could have been an action movie.
Well, they both had random bursts of violence.
They did. What a year.
Yeah. Well, we're already off to a good year with Doolittle that came out last week.
I'll say this: because I didn't see that much this year. We definitely had different lists, so. Yeah. I feel like mine was more the list if you were just some Joe Schmo moviegoer, or had kids. Or were a grandparent.
Mine's the list.
Thanks a lot for that.
Mine's the list of if you have the Regal Crown Club member, you can go see any movie unlimited. So of course you're gonna go see El Coyote, or I think that was the case with other people in that theater because one of the guys who left, I've seen at other movies like this in the audience, and I'm like, I think he's like me.
Gotta get my money's worth out of this membership somehow.
I think that's what it was. I totally do. All right. Thanks a bunch, everyone, for watching, and here's to next year what will hopefully be a lot more Playing with Fire.
Shitty kids films.
El
Coyote. That you're going to drag me to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Later, guys.